Hello, welcome, I'm Brenda. This is my second video where I introduce myself as an author on Authortube. If you haven't seen my first video, do watch it over here. I answer some questions that I'm not going to talk about in this video. In this video, I'm going to tell you more about who I am as a writer, my preferred writing style, my book, and what else am I going to tell you? Oh yes, who my favorite authors are, things like that. So let's look at some of those Authortube questions. One of them is, what genres do I write in? I write primarily non-fiction. I really like non-fiction. I've written a memoir. It's called When God Says No. It's a grief memoir. And this YouTube channel is to help others to write their memoirs and their stories. And I have a whole video on why I believe it's important to write our stories. So do watch it over here. I also currently do a lot of blogging. So that's really a genre that I write in right now, is blogging. As much as I like nonfiction and it is my preferred genre, I am looking at writing a novel. And the reason I'm writing a novel is because there's some things I would like to say and write that I just don't feel I can put in a memoir, but I can explore those topics in a novel. So I see myself doing that, but I also like to write nonfiction inspiration. So we'll see what my next book is, but right now my favorite genre is nonfiction. What is my preferred writing tense and point of view? For memoir, it's obviously first person past tense, and if you're writing a memoir, I would highly recommend that you do the same. Write first person past tense. Did you know you could write a memoir in the third person? But generally everybody writes their memoir in first person, and I highly recommend that you do too. Am I a plotter, a plancer, a pantser? What does that even all mean? So a plotter means that I meticulously plan out my writing before I write. No, that is not me. And I know it's not me because when I was reading Elizabeth George's book on how she writes, she explained that she plans everything out. The characters, she gives them cards, what they like to listen to, eat, their character traits, all of that. And I immediately felt this anxiety in me thinking, oh, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. It's not that I can't, I don't want to do that. So I realized then I'm not a plotter. But am I a pantser, which means I fly by the seat of my pants? And I know that's not me. I am not a fly by the seat of my pants person. So I do like to plot, but I also don't want all that detail that's going to just slow me down. So I am actually what's called a plancer, a blend of both. A plotter, but I also like to step into the process and see where it takes me. So for example, I will start with my memoir with an idea of what I want to write, why I want to write it, what I'm wanting to achieve, and how I'm going to go about it. But all the detail I don't really know until I start to write. And I start following the process, I start pulling it together, I go through the process, and then I edit. And from that, then I actually get my story. And so that's why I think I'm certainly a plancer. I do some planning, but I don't actually do it down to the nth degree. I see where the process takes me. I am also what I call a prayer. So I will pray before I write, and I find that that really does guide my writing. Am I self-published, published, or yet to be published? Well, I am published. I published my memoir, When God Says No, 2 years ago. And I chose to do it through hybrid publishing. I deliberately chose not to go the traditional publishing route, and I'll share all my details about that in another video. I deliberately chose hybrid publishing. I knew I didn't want to do self-publishing. For the hybrid publisher, I submitted my manuscript to Word Alive Press in one of their competitions. It was shortlisted, and I decided to go with them so that I could have a professional, polished product. If you're wanting to know more about Word Alive Press, I will put a link below to their website. When did I start writing? Well, think back. When did you start writing? Did you start as a child? I would have said I only started writing when I was an adult. But actually, I came across a little book. It was just about this big, a little red paper notebook that I had written in as a child, and in there I had written some stories, and my very first one was about a duck, and I'd even drawn a picture of the duck. And when I found this notebook, which sadly I don't have anymore, I realized that, hey, this is actually one of the first stories I probably ever wrote. Unfortunately, I felt shut down as a writer, as a creative, and I didn't explore writing or creative aspect to my personality for many years until I was an adult. And I share that in this video if you want to know more. What authors inspire me? Really, I'm going to do a video on that, a complete video on its own, because I find that to be an in-depth topic. Which authors actually inspire you? Am I inspired by authors whose writing I read and wish I could write like them? Am I inspired by authors whose writing I don't actually read, but I love their books about writing and how they encourage me to be a writer? Or am I inspired just because I love their storytelling? And so when I gave it some consideration and I chose one writer that I felt did all three and inspired me as a writer, I would have to say it's Daphne du Maurier. Now, Daphne du Maurier is a novelist well known for her story Rebecca. She's also written a number of other novels. And I fell in love with Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca when I was 16 years old. I read the book, I loved the story, I loved the way she drew me into it. I loved the characters, the mystery, and I fell in love with Rebecca. I also then became very intrigued by Daphne du Maurier. I don't even know how I have them, but I do have two of her memoirs. This one is her own memoir, which is Myself When Young, The Shaping of a Writer. And I love how she shares how she became a writer. That has really inspired me. I also learned more about her when she wrote a memoir about her father, and it's called Gerald. What I also find inspiring about Daphne du Maurier is when I've read some of her first novels, I've actually found they're not as good as Rebecca. Rebecca is world famous. It's a fabulous story. It made her famous. But her first stories are actually not in the same league, and that inspires me, and I feel it should inspire you too. Don't wait until you can write the perfect story. Don't wait until you can write everything just so. Get started, start writing, start putting your stories out there, and don't worry if they're not perfect. Hers weren't. She somehow still got published, and they improved, and that really inspires me. Now, do I schedule my writing, or do I write whenever I have time? I do both. Just like I'm a plantser and not a plotter or a pantser, I do both. If I'm working on a book like I did with my memoir, I plan it. I put out my time when I'm going to write it. I schedule it. I make it a priority. Right now, I'm not writing anything in particular. I'm doing this YouTube channel, I'm doing a lot of blogging, I'm doing a lot of journaling, I'm doing a lot of research, and so my writing, I don't have any scheduled time, it's when I get to it. But I know I have some really strong writing in me I still want to get out. And so when I get to that point again, I will certainly be planning it, and I'll take you along on the journey. Right now I'm getting this YouTube channel started so I can help you, and once I've got my rhythm and my routine and everything moving, I will go back to planning writing, and we'll talk more about it on this channel. So do subscribe and do follow. There's a lot to do together and to learn. Do I type on a computer, typewriter, or by hand? If I'm writing, I write on the computer. I don't even think twice about it. If I'm planning, if I'm working through things, well, then I write in a journal with a pencil. I'm not a writer with pen. I like to write with pencil. Something I've also started to inspire me is to actually use a sketch pad. And what I do with my sketch pad is I write in it sideways. Again, in pencil. I'm a real pencil person. I think that's part of my accounting background. So I like to use this in order to get myself out of the routine of just at a computer and just writing in a journal, to write sideways, to draw pictures, to color things in, to brainstorm, to work differently. So I do use this in order to plan my writing and to inspire me. but I don't write that way. When I write, it's on a computer. And when I wrote my memoir, I used YWriter. So I'll put a link below to YWriter if you want to consider it as a way in which to write your story. So that's everything. Those are all the ins and outs about me as a YouTube author and a writer and this YouTube channel. I would love to create a community that inspires you to write, just like Daphne du Maurier has inspired me and many others have inspired me. I'm hoping that this YouTube channel will create a community that will inspire you to write. I'll see you in those next videos. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.